I didn't expect the transfer to be permanent when I accepted it. That's what they told me at the district office in Bismarck. 3 months, maybe 4, just until they could hire someone local. The northern grasslands were short-staffed, had been for over a year, and they needed someone with experience to hold things together while they worked through the hiring process. The pay was better, the workload was supposed to be lighter, and after 9 years in the Badlands dealing with heat stroke and selfie-related injuries, the idea of cooler weather and fewer tourists sounded like a vacation. I should have asked why they couldn't keep anyone hired. My name is Marcus Hale. I'm 34, been a park ranger since I was 25, and I've seen most of what North Dakota has to offer in terms of wilderness management. Bison management, wildfire response, search and rescue in terrain that'll kill you 6 different ways if you're not paying attention. I thought I'd seen it all. The Little Missouri National Grassland is different from the Badlands. Less dramatic, more subtle. Rolling hills covered in prairie grass, scattered pockets of juniper and cottonwood, the Missouri River cutting through valleys that look like someone took a knife to the landscape 1,000,000 years ago and never bothered to smooth it out. It's quiet up here. The kind of quiet that makes city people nervous. At night it's quieter still. My first day, I drove up from Bismarck in my personal truck, following directions to the main ranger station, a squat brick building about 15 miles outside the town of Watford City, population 3,000 and change. The station sat at the end of a gravel road, surrounded by nothing but grass and sky, and the kind of emptiness that makes you feel like you're the only person left in the world. There were 3 vehicles in the lot when I arrived, 2 white Park Service trucks and a battered Chevy that looked like it had been through at least 1 flood and maybe a small war. I grabbed my duffel and headed inside. The interior was standard issue, laminate floors, fluorescent lights, a counter separating the public area from the back offices, maps on the walls, informational posters about fire danger and wildlife safety. A coffee maker that looked older than I was, burbling away on a corner table. A woman stood behind the counter, mid-50s, grey hair pulled back in a bun, wearing the Park Service uniform like it was welded to her body. She looked up when I walked in, eyes sharp and assessing. "Marcus Hale," she said. "That's me." She came around the counter and shook my hand. Her grip was firm, calloused, the handshake of someone who'd spent decades working outdoors. "Ellen Dvorak," she said, "District Supervisor. Welcome to the North." "Thanks," I said. "Glad to be here." She smiled faintly, like I'd said something amusing. "We'll see if that's still true in a month," she said. "Come on, I'll show you around." The station was small. Just 4 offices, a break room, a storage area, and a bunk room for rangers working overnight shifts. Ellen walked me through it quickly, pointing out where supplies were kept, how the radio system worked, where the keys to the trucks were stored. "We've got 2 other rangers on staff right now," she said as we passed through the break room. "Tom Westfield, he works days, handles most of the tourist interaction, and Carla Ruiz, she covers nights when we need her. You'll meet them both soon enough." "Nights?" I asked. "I thought this area didn't get much after-hours traffic." "It doesn't," Ellen said, "but we still need someone on call, radio monitoring, incident response, that sort of thing." She poured herself a cup of coffee and gestured to the pot. I shook my head. "You'll be on a rotating schedule," she continued. "Mostly days for the first few weeks while you get oriented. After that, we'll fold you into the night rotation." "Sounds good," I said. She studied me over the rim of her mug. "Marcus," she said slowly, "before we go any further, there's something you need to know. It's not in the official handbook, and it's not something we talk about with the public, but it's the most important rule we have up here." I frowned. "Okay." She set her mug down and crossed her arms. "If someone calls in after midnight reporting something unusual in the woods, something large, something they can't identify, something that doesn't move like an animal, you log it. You tell them to stay indoors and lock their doors, and you do absolutely nothing else. No patrol, no follow-up, no rescue attempt. You wait until sunrise, and then, if they're still asking, you send someone to check during daylight. Clear?" I blinked. "That seems specific," I said. "It is," she said. "What kind of something large are we talking about?" "Doesn't matter," she said. "The rule is the same. After midnight, if the call involves something unusual, you don't respond." I tried to process that. "Ellen, if someone's in trouble..." They're less in trouble if we stay here than if we go out there, she said flatly. I've been doing this job for 28 years, Marcus. I'm not being dramatic. I'm not hazing you. This is protocol. Unofficial, yes, but protocol nonetheless. She picked up her coffee again. You follow that rule, she said, and you'll be fine. You ignore it and you won't last a month. She walked out of the break room, leaving me standing there with more questions than I'd arrived with. I spent the rest of that first day shadowing Tom Westfield, a guy in his early 40s with a sunburn that looked permanent and a laid-back attitude that made him popular with the handful of hikers and campers we encountered. He showed me the common patrol routes, the trailheads, the areas where people like to camp illegally, and the spots where cell service occasionally worked. It's pretty chill up here, he said, as we drove a loop around the southern edge of the district. Most days you're just checking gates, making sure nobody's doing anything stupid. Occasionally you'll get a call about a lost dog or someone who twisted an ankle. Nothing too dramatic. Ellen mentioned night shifts, I said. What's that like? He glanced at me, then back at the road. Quiet, he said. Mostly you're just sitting at the station monitoring the radio. If someone calls, you log it and decide if it's worth going out for. She also mentioned a rule, I said carefully, about not responding to certain calls after midnight. Tom's hands tightened slightly on the wheel. Yeah, he said. That. Care to elaborate? He was quiet for a moment, staring at the road. Look, he said finally. I don't know what it is, I've never seen it, but there's something out here that people report seeing at night, something big, and the few times rangers have gone out to investigate, they've not come back. Or they've come back wrong. Wrong how? He shrugged. Scared, confused. One guy quit the next day and moved to Florida. Another one ended up in a psych ward for a month, so now we just don't go. We log the calls, we tell people to stay inside, and we check on them in the morning. It's worked so far. How often do these calls come in? Maybe once a month, he said. Sometimes less, sometimes more. Depends. On what? He didn't answer. That night I stayed in the bunk room at the station. It was small and Spartan, just a cot, a locker, and a narrow window that looked out over the grassland. Helen had offered to help me find a rental in Watford City, but I'd told her I'd figure it out after I settled in. I lay in the dark, listening to the building creak and the wind hiss through the grass outside, and tried not to think about what Tom had said. Something big. Rangers not coming back. I'd worked in wilderness areas long enough to know that something big could mean a lot of things. Bear, moose, even bison if they were feeling aggressive. But the way Tom and Ellen talked about it, the way they wouldn't name it directly, made it clear this was something else. I fell asleep eventually, somewhere around midnight, and dreamed of walking through tall grass under a sky with no stars. The radio woke me at 2:47 a.m. I sat up, disoriented, heart pounding. The bunk room was pitch black except for the faint green glow of the clock on the wall. The radio in the main office crackled again, static hissing, then a voice broke through. Anyone there? This is Site 17. We need... The voice cut out, replaced by static. I swung my legs off the cot, pulled on my boots, and stumbled into the main office. Ellen was already there, standing behind the radio desk, hands flat on the surface, staring at the speaker like it was a live grenade. The voice came back. Something outside the tent. It's huge. I don't know what it is. It's just standing there. A woman's voice. Young. Scared. Please, we need someone to come. It's not moving. It's just... Oh God, it's looking at us. Ellen reached for the mic, clicked it. Site 17, this is base. Stay inside your tent. Do not go outside. Do not make noise. Do you understand? Static. Then, what? No, you need to come. It's right outside. I can see... Stay. Inside, Ellen repeated, voice hard. Lock your vehicle if you have one. Turn off your lights. Do not engage. We will check on you at first light. First light? That's hours from now. You have to... Ellen clicked the mic off. The radio kept crackling. The woman kept calling, her voice getting more frantic, more desperate. Ellen didn't respond. I stared at her. We're not going, I said. No, she said. There's someone out there. I know. Ellen. She turned to face me, and I saw something in her expression that made me stop. Not anger, not indifference, fear. You think I want to leave her out there, she said quietly. You think I don't hear that in my head every time? But if we go, we'll die, or worse. And then there'll be no one to check on her in the morning." "What is it?" I asked. "What's out there?" She looked at the radio, then back at me. "I don't know," she said. "But it's been here longer than we have, and it doesn't like being disturbed." The radio finally went silent around 3:15 a.m. Ellen logged the call, date, time, location, brief description. Then she poured herself more coffee and sat down heavily in the desk chair. "Get some sleep," she said without looking at me. "We'll go out at first light." I didn't sleep, just went back to the bunk room and lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind and wondering what the hell I'd walked into. At 6 a.m., Ellen knocked on my door. "Let's go," she said. We drove out to Site 17 in one of the Park Service trucks, the sky just starting to lighten in the east. The grassland looked peaceful, almost serene, dotted with wildflowers and the occasional stand of cottonwood. Site 17 was a dispersed camping area about 10 miles from the station, just a cleared spot near a dry creek bed with a fire ring and a weathered sign. When we arrived, there was a small tent pitched near the trees, a Honda CR-V parked beside it. No movement. Ellen killed the engine and sat there for a moment, hands on the wheel, eyes scanning the area. "Stay close," she said. We got out. The tent was zipped shut. Ellen called out, "Park Service, anyone inside?" No answer. She approached slowly, unzipped the flap, and looked inside. "Empty," she said. I checked the vehicle. Unlocked. Keys on the dashboard. A backpack on the passenger seat, wallet inside. ID showing a woman named Jessica Marin, age 26, from Fargo. "Ellen," I called. She came over, looked at the ID, then scanned the area again. "Footprints," she said, pointing. I followed her gaze. There were prints in the soft dirt near the tent, boot treads heading toward the tree line. We followed them slowly, cautiously, deeper into the grass. They stopped about 50 yards from the campsite. Just stopped. No sign of a struggle, no drag marks, no blood. Just boot prints that walked forward and then ended, as if the person had simply evaporated mid-step. Ellen crouched, examining the ground. "Look," she said quietly. She pointed to another set of prints, barely visible in the dirt. Not boot prints. Something else. Large, elongated, almost human-shaped, but the proportions were wrong. Toes too long, spaced too far apart, impression too deep, and the spacing between each print was nearly 4 meters. "Jesus," I whispered. Ellen stood up, brushing dirt from her hands. "We need to call this in," she said. "File a missing person report. They'll send search teams, dogs, maybe helicopters. They won't find anything, but we have to try. What do you think happened to her?" Ellen looked at the tree line, then back at the strange prints. "Same thing that's happened to everyone else who sees it and doesn't listen," she said. "And what is that?" She didn't answer. We walked back to the truck in silence. The search went on for 3 days. Volunteers, county sheriff, even a K-9 unit from Bismarck. They combed the area, checked every ravine and gully, interviewed nearby campers. They found nothing. Jessica Marin was officially listed as missing, presumed lost in the wilderness. The case stayed open, but after a week, the active search was called off. I spent that week doing normal work. Trail maintenance, gate checks, helping lost tourists. But every night when I lay down in the bunk room, I thought about those boot prints stopping in the middle of nowhere. And the other prints, the ones that didn't belong to anything I recognized. On my 8th night, I was sitting in the office monitoring the radio when Ellen came in with a thick binder. "You're going to keep asking," she said, setting it on the desk. "So you might as well know." I opened it. Inside were incident reports, dozens of them. Going back 40 years, missing persons, all within a 20-mile radius of the station, all vanishing at night, all last seen near the grassland or the wooded areas along the river. I flipped through slowly, reading names and dates and brief descriptions. 1984, hiker. Disappeared after reporting something tall watching his campsite. 1991, hunter. Found his truck abandoned, rifle still in the back, boot prints leading into the trees and stopping. 2003, park ranger. Responded to a call about unusual activity. Never returned, body never found. 2011, camper. Called in at 1 a.m. saying something was circling her tent. Radio went silent. Found her campsite empty the next morning. Tent collapsed, no sign of struggle. There were 14 entries in total. 14 people. Gone. What is this? I asked. That, Ellen said quietly, is why we don't respond after midnight. I looked up at her. You're telling me there's something out here that's been taking people for 40 years and nobody's done anything about it. What would you suggest? She said. Call the police, tell them there's a giant in the woods, show them prints that don't match any known animal, they'd laugh us out of the room. So we just let it happen. We follow the rule, she said. We don't go out after midnight. We don't engage, and most years nobody goes missing. It's only when people ignore the warnings, when they go looking, when they try to help, that it ends badly. She closed the binder. You wanted to know, she said. Now you know. The question is, are you going to follow the rule or are you going to be number 15? I didn't answer. That night, alone in the bunk room, I heard it for the first time. Not a voice, not a call for help, just a sound. Branches snapping, slow, rhythmic, somewhere far off in the dark. Snap, pause, snap, pause. Like something moving through the trees, too large to be quiet, too deliberate to be an animal. I lay there, listening, until the sound faded into the distance. And I understood for the first time why the rule existed, because whatever was out there wasn't just dangerous, it was patient. And it was listening. The calls started coming more frequently after that. Not every night, not even every week, but often enough that I stopped being surprised when the radio crackled to life after midnight, with someone's panicked voice cutting through the static. It was always the same pattern, someone camping alone or in a small group, usually in one of the dispersed sites along the river or near the wooded draws. They'd call in, sometimes calm, sometimes terrified, and describe something large moving near their camp, something that didn't sound like a bear or a moose or anything they recognized. And we'd tell them the same thing every time: stay inside, lock your vehicle, don't go outside. We'll check on you at first light. Some of them argued, some of them begged. A few hung up and called 911 instead, which just routed back to us anyway, since we were the closest emergency responders in the area. But they all survived the night, as long as they stayed inside and didn't go looking. I'd been on the job for 3 weeks when I worked my first solo night shift. Ellen had deemed me oriented enough, and Tom was off for a long weekend, so it was just me in the station from 10 p.m. until 6 a.m., monitoring the radio and handling whatever came in. The first few hours were quiet. I caught up on paperwork, logged weather data, drank bad coffee, and tried not to think about the binder full of missing persons reports sitting in Ellen's office. At 1:23 a.m., the radio crackled. Base, this is, I don't know what my site number is, but I'm camped near the river, maybe 5 miles north of the main road. Male voice, young, uncertain. I grabbed the mic. This is Base. What's your situation? I think there's something outside my tent. Something big. I heard it walking around maybe 10 minutes ago. Heavy footsteps. It's not doing anything, just standing there. I can see the shadow through the tent wall. My hand tightened on the mic. Can you get to a vehicle? Yeah, my truck's right next to the tent. Do it now, I said. Get in your truck, lock the doors, and stay there until sunrise. Do not go outside to investigate. Do not use a flashlight to look for it. Just get in the truck and wait. What is it? He asked. I don't know, I said, but you'll be safe in the truck. There was a pause. I heard rustling, zipper sounds, then a door slamming. Okay, he said, voice muffled now. I'm in the truck. It's still out there. I can see it. Don't look at it, I said. Just stay calm. We'll come check on you in the morning. It's so tall, he said quietly. Why is it so tall? Don't look at it, I repeated. Just wait it out. The line went quiet for a moment. Then, it's walking away. Oh, thank God, it's walking away. Good, I said. Stay in the truck anyway. Don't leave until daylight. Yeah, he said. Yeah, okay, thank you. He hung up. I logged the call and sat back, heart still racing. This was the first time I'd handled one of these alone. Ellen had been there for the others, calm and collected, making it look easy. But sitting by myself in the dark station, Listening to someone describe something they couldn't identify, and knowing I couldn't help them, was different. I understood now why the turnover rate was so high. At first light, I drove out to find him. He was still in his truck, windows fogged, engine off. I knocked on the glass and he jumped, then rolled down the window. "Park service," I said. "You okay?" "Yeah," he said. He looked exhausted. "Yeah, I'm fine. I didn't sleep, but I'm fine." "Did it come back?" "No, it walked off around 2 and I didn't see it again." "You get a good look at it?" He hesitated. "Not really," he said. "It was too dark. But it was big, like really big, taller than the truck, and it moved weird." "Weird how?" "I don't know how to describe it," he said. "Like, it didn't walk the way things are supposed to walk. The legs were too long, the steps were too slow. It looked wrong." I nodded. "You mind if I take a look around?" "Go ahead." I walked a slow circle around his campsite. The tent was still standing, untouched. The fire ring was cold. Everything looked normal, except for the prints. They were there, just like the ones I'd seen at Jessica Marin's site. Large, elongated, too deep, spaced impossibly far apart. I took photos with my phone and walked back to the truck. "You're free to go," I said, "but I'd recommend camping closer to town from now on." "Yeah," he said. "I don't think I'm coming back out here." He packed up and left within 20 minutes. I stood there in the empty campsite looking at the prints and pulled out my phone to call Ellen. "It's getting bolder," I said when she answered. "This is the 3rd call in 2 weeks." "I know," she said. "What do we do?" "We follow the rule," she said. "Same as always." "Ellen, this thing is coming into camps. It's getting close to people. Eventually, someone's going to get hurt. Only if they go outside," she said. "As long as they stay in their vehicles or tents and don't engage, it leaves them alone. That's the pattern. What if the pattern changes?" She was quiet for a moment. "Then we'll deal with it," she said. "But until then, we stick to what works." She hung up. I drove back to the station feeling like I was missing something, some piece of information that would make this all make sense. When I got there, I went straight to Ellen's office and pulled out the binder again. This time, I read every entry carefully. Not just the summaries, but the notes, the timestamps, the locations, and I found something. The incidents weren't random. They clustered. 3 or 4 would happen in quick succession over a period of weeks, then nothing for months. Sometimes years. The last cluster had been in 2019, 4 disappearances over 6 weeks. Before that, 2014, 5 disappearances over 2 months. Before that, 2008, 3 disappearances over 3 weeks. I pulled out a map and marked the locations. They formed a rough pattern, a line that moved slowly northeast to southwest over the years, like something was migrating, or patrolling. And according to the pattern, we were due. The 2019 cluster had ended in October. It was now June 2025. We were overdue. I showed Ellen the map that afternoon. She studied it for a long time, then set it down on her desk. "You're not the first person to notice," she said, "so you know it follows a pattern." "We've suspected," she said, "but we don't know what drives it. Could be seasonal, could be territorial, could be something else entirely." "We should warn people," I said. "Close the dispersed sites. Restrict camping to developed areas." "We've tried that before," she said. "In 2014, closed half the district. People just ignored the closures and camped illegally. We had more incidents, not fewer. So what's the answer?" She looked at me seriously. "The answer," she said, "is that some things can't be solved, they can only be survived." I didn't like that answer, but I didn't have a better one. Over the next 10 days, we received 6 more calls, all after midnight, all describing the same thing. Something large, something tall, something wrong moving near their camps, and every time we told them to stay inside and wait for daylight, every time they did, and every time they were fine in the morning. But the reports were getting more detailed. One caller said it had circled his tent 3 times before leaving. Another said it had stood outside his RV for over an hour, just waiting. A third said she'd heard it make a sound, not a growl, not a roar, but something low and resonant, like a tree creaking under weight. On the 11th day, we got a call that broke the pattern. It came in at 9:47 p.m., still dark, but not yet midnight. Base, this is Site 12. I've got something out here and I need help right now. Male voice, older, panicked. Site 12, what's your situation? I asked. There's something in the trees. It's huge. It's just standing there watching me. I can see it. Sir, stay in your vehicle. I'm not in my vehicle. I'm at my campfire. It's right there. It's maybe 30 feet away. My blood went cold. Get to your vehicle now, I said. Do not look at it. Do not run. Just walk calmly to your vehicle and get inside. It's not moving, he said. Why isn't it moving? Sir, get to your vehicle. Oh God, it's tilting its head. Why is it? The line went dead. I called back. No answer. I tried again. Static. Ellen came into the office, saw my face, and grabbed her keys. Where? She said. Site 12. Let's go. We broke the rule. We went out at night, before midnight, because someone was standing outside with that thing only 30 feet away, and the call had cut off, and we had no choice. We took both trucks, drove fast, radios on in case he called back. Site 12 was a developed campsite with a picnic table and a fire ring, nestled in a drawer surrounded by cottonwoods. When we pulled in, my headlights swept across the camp. The fire was still burning. A folding chair sat next to it. A cooler. A tent pitched under the trees. No one in sight. Ellen and I got out, flashlights up, calling out, "Park service, anyone here?" No answer. I approached the fire. It was still hot, wood crackling, flames barely a foot high. The chair was empty. The cooler was closed. His phone was on the ground next to the chair, screen dark. "Marcus," Ellen called. I turned. She was standing near the tree line, aiming her flashlight up into the branches. There were marks on the trunks, fresh ones. Deep gouges, like something had scraped them with immense force, starting at around 8 feet off the ground and going up another 10 feet. "It was here," she said quietly. "Where is he?" I asked. We split up, searching the area, calling his name. We found boot prints leading away from the campsite into the trees. We followed them. They went 30 yards, then stopped. Right in the middle of a small clearing, his prints just ended. No struggle, no signs of anything being dragged. Just prints that walked forward and then vanished. And around them, pressed into the soft earth, were the other prints. The ones that didn't belong to anything I'd ever seen. Dozens of them. Like it had circled the spot where he'd been standing, over and over before... What? Picking him up? Taking him? Ellen crouched, shining her light on the prints. "It's never taken someone this early before," she said. 9:47. "That's new." "What does that mean?" "It means it's changing," she said, "adapting." She stood up, looked around the clearing, then back at me. "We need to go," she said, "now." "We haven't found him. We're not going to," she said, "and if we stay out here much longer, we're next." We walked back to the trucks, fast but not running, constantly checking over our shoulders. I kept expecting to see it, to turn around and find something massive standing at the edge of the trees, watching us. But there was nothing, just darkness and the whisper of wind through the grass. We called it in. Another search was organized. Another missing person report filed. No body was ever found. 2 days later, a tourist uploaded a photo to Instagram. It had been taken at dusk, near one of the overlooks. A shot of the grassland stretching out under a pink and orange sky. Pretty, standard tourist stuff. Except in the background, barely visible among the trees, was something tall. Too tall. The image was blurry, distance and low light making it hard to see details, but you could make out a shape, vertical, unnaturally thin, standing motionless among the cottonwoods. The post got a few dozen likes, a handful of comments joking about Bigfoot. Then someone zoomed in on the image and reposted it. The zoomed-in version showed more. Not much, but enough. The shape had a head, small, disproportionate to the body, and it was turned toward the camera, not facing forward. Turned. Like it had rotated its head without moving its body. And when you looked closely, really closely, you could see something else. 2 pale circles where eyes should be, staring directly at the lens. The post went semi-viral. Reddit picked it up. A few paranormal blogs. Local news did a segment about mysterious figure in North Dakota wilderness. The photo was geotagged. Within 3 days, we had 50 people show up looking for the giant. Thrill seekers, cryptid hunters. Influencers hoping to get their own photo. Ellen tried to turn them away, but we didn't have the authority to close the entire district. The best we could do was warn them, post signs, and hope they listened. They didn't. On the fourth night after the photo went viral, we got 7 calls. All after midnight, all describing the same thing, all terrified. And this time one of them didn't stay in their vehicle. A guy in his 20s, live streaming the whole thing, decided he was going to find the giant and prove it's real. He walked into the trees at 1 a.m., phone camera running, broadcasting to a few hundred viewers. The stream showed him walking through the dark, flashlight bouncing, narrating in a loud whisper about how he was going to be famous. At 1:14 he stopped. "Wait," he said. "Do you guys hear that? The sound of branches snapping, slow, rhythmic. Oh shit," he said. "Oh shit, I think it's here." He turned the camera, sweeping it across the trees. For just a second, less than a second, the light caught something. A shape. Tall, thin, too far away to see clearly, but it was there. The viewers in the chat went wild, telling him to get closer, telling him to run, telling him it was fake. He started walking toward it. "I'm going to get a better look," he said. The shape didn't move. He got within maybe 20 feet. The camera shook. His breathing got louder. "Holy shit," he whispered. "It's real. It's actually real. It's so—" The stream cut out. When we found his phone the next morning, it was lying in the grass, screen cracked, battery dead. We never found him. Ellen shut down the dispersed camping areas after that, officially closed them, put up barriers, threatened fines for anyone caught ignoring the closure. It slowed the tourist influx but didn't stop it. People kept coming, kept looking, and the calls kept coming in. I stopped sleeping, started drinking too much coffee, spent my off hours reading the incident reports over and over, trying to find something, anything, that would explain what we were dealing with. On my 35th day in the district, Ellen called me into her office. "You're burning out," she said. "I'm fine." "No, you're not," she said. "You're doing what every ranger does when they realize the rule isn't enough. You're trying to solve it, trying to understand it, trying to fix it." "Shouldn't we?" I asked. "We should survive it," she said. "That's all. That's not good enough. It's going to have to be," she said, "because in another week, if you keep going like this, you're going to make a mistake. You're going to go out there alone. You're going to try to see it for yourself, and then I'll be filing another missing person report." I didn't answer because I knew she was right. I had been thinking about it, about going out at night, about seeing what it was, about proving to myself that this was real and not some mass hallucination or coordinated prank. "Go home," Ellen said. "Take 3 days off. Get out of the district entirely. Go to Bismarck. Visit friends. Get drunk. I don't care. Just get away from here for a while." "Ellen, that's an order," she said. I left that afternoon, drove south toward Bismarck, windows down, radio loud, trying to drown out the sound of branches snapping that I kept hearing in my head. I made it about 60 miles before I turned around, because I realized something. If I left, if I took even 3 days off, Ellen would be alone, and the calls weren't stopping. And the thing in the woods was getting bolder. I got back to the station just after midnight. Ellen was at the radio desk, talking someone through another sighting. She looked up when I walked in. "I told you to leave," she said. "I know," I said, "but I'm not leaving you here alone." She studied me for a moment, then nodded. "All right," she said. "Then you better get some sleep because tomorrow night we're both on shift." "Why?" "Because," she said quietly, "I think it's going to come for one of us soon. And when it does, I'd rather we face it together than apart." She turned back to the radio, and I realized, for the first time, that Ellen wasn't just following the rule because it worked. She was following it because she was terrified. And if someone with 28 years of experience was terrified, then I was in way over my head. The tourist influx died down after 2 weeks, not because people stopped being interested, but because 3 more influencers had gone missing, and suddenly the giant wasn't a fun mystery anymore, it was a liability. Instagram deleted the original photo after the 3rd disappearance. Reddit threads got locked. Local news stopped covering it. The district went quiet again. But the calls didn't stop. If anything, they got worse, no longer just campers or hikers. Now we were getting calls from locals, people who'd lived in the area their whole lives and never reported anything unusual before. A rancher called in saying something tall had been standing at the edge of his property for 3 nights running, just watching the house. A woman in Watford City reported seeing something cross the highway at 2 a.m., something that took 3 strides to cross 4 lanes. A truck driver said he'd seen it standing in a field, silhouetted against the sky, and when he'd slowed down to look, it had turned its head to follow his truck as he passed. "It's expanding its range," Ellen said one morning as we reviewed the logs. "Used to stay near the river, near the wooded areas. Now it's moving into open country." "Why?" I asked. "I don't know," she said, "but it's not a good sign. Tom had quit the week before. Just turned in his keys and his radio and said he couldn't do it anymore. Didn't elaborate, didn't ask for a reference, just left. That left Ellen and me running the entire northern district alone. We split shifts, her days, me nights, then switching every few days to keep ourselves from burning out completely. We barely saw each other except for shift changes and the occasional overlap when something needed both of us. I was exhausted. Ellen looked worse. The lines around her eyes had deepened. She'd lost weight. She moved slower, like every step took effort. "You should take time off," I told her one afternoon when she came in to relieve me. "So should you," she said. "I'm serious. You look like I've been doing this job for 30 years, she said. "Yeah, I know." She poured herself coffee and sat down heavily. "Marcus, I appreciate the concern, but I'm not leaving. Not now. Not with things escalating like this." "What do you think is going to happen?" She stared into her mug. "I think," she said slowly, "that whatever this thing is, it's been patient for a long time. Decades. Maybe longer. But something's changed. Maybe it's the attention. Maybe it's the number of people coming through. Maybe it's something else. But it's not hiding anymore. So what do we do?" "We survive," she said. Same as always. The call came in on a Friday night at 11:38 p.m. I was alone in the station. Ellen was off shift, supposedly sleeping at her place in town. The voice on the radio was a man's, middle-aged, trying to stay calm but failing. "Base, this is... I don't know the site number. We're in an RV parked near the river about 10 miles north of town. What's your situation?" I asked. "There's something outside," he said. "Big. Really big. It's circling the RV. My kids are freaking out. My wife is... Just tell me what to do." "Kids." My chest tightened. "Stay inside the RV," I said. "Lock all the doors and windows. Turn off your exterior lights. Do not go outside. Do not look out the windows if you can avoid it." "It's scratching on the side," he said. "I can hear it." "What is it?" "I don't know," I said. "But as long as you stay inside, you'll be okay." "You're not coming?" "Not until daylight," I said. "I know that's not what you want to hear, but it's the safest option for everyone." "There are children here," he said, voice rising. "You're telling me you won't come help children?" I closed my eyes. "Sir, I understand you're scared. But if I come out there, I'll put myself and you and your family at greater risk. The best thing you can do is stay calm, stay inside and wait for sunrise. We'll come first thing." He started to argue. Then I heard a woman's voice in the background, sharp and frightened. "It's at the door," the man said. "Oh God, it's trying the door handle." "Is the door locked?" I asked. "Yes, but..." "Then it can't get in," I said, hoping I was right. "Just stay quiet. Don't make noise. It'll leave." The line went silent except for breathing. Then faintly I heard it, a low creaking sound like wood bending under weight, and a scraping noise, rhythmic, deliberate. "It's on the roof," the man whispered. "It climbed onto the roof. The RV is shaking." "Stay calm," I said. "It's testing. As long as you don't engage..." The line went dead. I called back. No answer. I tried again. Static. I sat there for maybe 30 seconds, staring at the radio, trying to decide what to do. Then I grabbed the keys to the truck and my phone and I called Ellen. She answered on the first ring. "What's wrong?" "Family in an RV, kids. Something's on their roof." The line went dead. I heard her exhale. "Where?" 10 miles north, near the river. I'm going." "Wait for me," she said. "I'm 5 minutes out." "Ellen." "Wait." "For me." She hung up. I waited. She arrived in 4 minutes, pulling up in her personal truck, still wearing sweatpants and an old Park Service jacket. "Let's go," she said. We took one vehicle, my truck, and drove fast, headlights cutting through the dark radio between us on the seat. "You know this breaks the rule," Ellen said. "I know. You know what happens when we break the rule." "I know," I said. "But they've got kids, Ellen. I can't just leave them out there." She didn't argue, just stared out the window, jaw tight. We found the RV 15 minutes later, parked in a clearing near the riverbank. It was a big fifth wheel, lights off, door closed. No movement. I killed the engine. We sat there for a moment, scanning the area with our flashlights. "I don't see it," I said. "That doesn't mean it's not here," Ellen said. We got out, slowly, and approached the RV. Ellen knocked on the door. "Park Service. Anyone inside?" No answer. She knocked again. "Sir? Ma'am? It's safe to open the door." Still nothing. I walked around the RV, shining my light up at the roof. There were dents in the aluminum, fresh ones deep. "Ellen," I called. She came around, looked at the roof, then at me. "Try the door," she said. I pulled the handle. Unlocked. We opened it together, flashlights up. The interior was a mess. Chairs overturned, cabinet doors hanging open, a child's stuffed animal on the floor, but no people. "Check the back," Ellen said. I moved through the narrow hallway to the bedroom. Empty. The bed was unmade, blankets tangled like someone had gotten up in a hurry. The bathroom door was closed. I knocked. "Hello?" A small voice answered. "Is it gone?" I opened the door. A woman and two kids, maybe 6 and 8 years old, were crammed into the tiny bathroom, the woman holding both children against her, eyes wide and red from crying. "You're okay," I said. "It's safe. Come out." "Where's my husband?" she asked. My stomach dropped. "He's not in here. He went outside," she said. "He said he was going to scare it off. He grabbed the baseball bat and went out the door, and I heard him yell and then nothing." Ellen appeared behind me. "How long ago?" she asked. "Maybe 10 minutes, the woman said. Ellen and I exchanged a look. "Stay here," Ellen told her. "Lock the door behind us. Don't come out until we come back." We stepped outside and swept our lights across the clearing. No sign of him. We moved slowly, methodically, calling his name. I found the baseball bat first. It was lying in the grass about 20 yards from the RV, aluminum-dented, handle cracked. "Ellen," I called. She came over, saw the bat, and aimed her light further out. There were prints, boot prints, running, erratic, and the other kind, the ones that didn't belong. They converged near a stand of cottonwoods at the edge of the clearing. We followed them. The boot prints stopped at the base of a tree. The other prints circled it, once, twice, 3 times. Then they led away deeper into the trees, spacing wide and deliberate. "He's gone," Ellen said quietly. "We have to look." "Marcus, he's gone," she said, voice hard. "We're not going into those trees at night. Not for him, not for anyone." "Ellen, we get the family out," she said. "We call it in. We search at first light. But we do not go into those trees." I wanted to argue, wanted to say we couldn't just abandon him, but I saw the look in her eyes, and I understood. She'd seen this before, multiple times, and she knew how it ended. We walked back to the RV and helped the woman and her kids into our truck. The whole time, she kept asking where her husband was, and we kept saying we'd find him in the morning. We drove them to a motel in Watford City, paid for the room ourselves, and told them to stay put until we contacted them. Then we drove back to the clearing. "We're not leaving until sunrise," Ellen said. "If he's alive, he'll call out. If he's not..." She didn't finish. We parked the truck near the RV, engine running, heater on, and waited. For 4 hours we sat there in silence, watching the tree line, listening for any sound. Nothing. At first light we searched. We found his jacket about 100 yards into the trees, torn and muddy. We found one of his boots another 50 yards beyond that. We found nothing else. The search teams came. Dogs, volunteers, sheriff's deputies. They combed the area for 2 days. No body. No trail. No evidence of where he'd gone. Just the same pattern. Boot prints that led into the trees and stopped, and the other prints circling, before leading away into terrain too rough to follow. The family went home to Minnesota 3 days later. The wife kept calling me, asking if we'd found anything, asking what had happened, asking if her husband was dead. I didn't know what to tell her. Ellen handled the press, made a statement about an ongoing search for a missing hiker. Didn't mention the giant, didn't mention the prince, just another disappearance in the wilderness. After it was over, Ellen and I sat in the office, exhausted, staring at the map where we'd marked every incident. "We broke the rule," I said. "I know. And he still died." "I know," she said, "but his family didn't. That's something." "Is it?" She didn't answer. That night, I was back on shift, alone again. Ellen had gone home. At 2:14 a.m., the radio crackled. No voice, just a sound, low, rhythmic, like breathing. Then it cut out. I stared at the speaker. It crackled again. This time there was a voice, faint, distorted. "Marcus." My blood went cold. It was Ellen's voice. "Marcus, it's outside. I need help." I grabbed the phone, called her cell. She answered, groggy. "What? Are you okay?" I asked. "What?" "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm in bed." "Why?" "Someone just called on the radio using your voice." Silence. "Ellen?" "I'm here," she said. "Marcus, do not respond to that call. Do you understand? Whatever it is, it's not me." "I know. Promise me you won't go outside." "I won't." "Good. I'm coming in." "Ellen, you don't have to." "I'm coming in," she said. 20 minutes. She hung up. I sat there, staring at the radio. It crackled again. "Marcus, please, it's so cold." Ellen's voice. Perfect. Down to the slight rasp she got when she was tired. I didn't respond. The voice came again. Closer. Clearer. "Marcus, I'm right outside. Let me in." I looked at the door. It was locked, deadbolted. Through the small window I could see nothing but darkness. "Marcus!" The door handle rattled. I stood up, backing away, hand on my radio. The handle rattled again. Harder. Then it stopped. Silence. I waited, barely breathing. Then I heard it. Footsteps. On the roof. Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. Moving from the front of the building to the back. I grabbed my flashlight and my keys and moved toward the back door, the emergency exit. The footsteps stopped directly above me. Something scraped across the roof, long, dragging. I stood frozen, staring at the ceiling. Then, very slowly, a shape passed across the narrow window near the ceiling. Tall, thin. Too tall to be Ellen, too thin to be human. It paused at the window, and for just a second I saw something. A face. Pale. Featureless except for two dark hollows where eyes should be. Looking down at me. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Just stared back. The shape moved on. The footsteps resumed, slow, deliberate, moving back toward the front of the building. Then they stopped, and I heard Ellen's truck pull into the lot. I ran to the front window and looked out. Ellen was getting out of her truck, keys in hand, walking toward the building. On the roof, directly above the entrance, the shape stood. I pounded on the window. "Ellen, get back in the truck!" She looked up, confused. The shape on the roof shifted. "Ellen, run!" She saw it then. Her eyes went wide. For one terrible second she froze. Then she bolted for her truck. The thing on the roof moved, not climbing down, just stepping off. It dropped 15 feet and landed between Ellen and her truck, legs bending at angles that weren't right, absorbing the impact without sound. Ellen stumbled backward, pulling her radio. "Marcus, get in a vehicle and go. I'm not leaving you." The thing took a step toward her. She backed up, hands raised. "It's okay. I'm not a threat. I'm just going to walk away." It tilted its head. The motion was slow, deliberate, like a bird examining prey. Ellen stopped moving. "Marcus," she said quietly into the radio, "if I don't make it, you need to—" The thing lunged, not fast, but covering the distance in one impossible stride. It reached down, arms too long, joints bending wrong, and picked her up like she weighed nothing. Ellen didn't scream, didn't fight. She just looked at the building, at the window where I stood, and mouthed two words: "Follow protocol." Then the thing turned and walked into the darkness, carrying her. I ran outside, flashlight up, shouting her name. But by the time I reached the spot where she'd been standing, there was nothing. Just prints, hers, leading away from the truck, and the others, the ones that didn't belong, and then nothing. I searched until sunrise. I called for backup, called the sheriff, called everyone I could think of. The search went on for a week. We never found her. They brought in everyone for Ellen, sheriff's deputies, search and rescue from 3 counties, volunteers from town who'd known her for decades, even a helicopter from the state patrol that spent 2 days burning fuel over the grasslands, sweeping the draws and ridges with a FLIR camera. They found nothing, not a scrap of clothing, not a torn piece of gear, not a sign of struggle beyond the prints I'd watched appear in front of me. Ellen Dvorak, 28 years of service, 4 commendations, no family but this place, was officially listed as missing, presumed dead. No one said the word taken. They didn't have to. Everyone who worked up here knew. I ran on autopilot for the first week after she vanished. Day shifts, night shifts, paperwork, calls, press briefings I didn't feel qualified to give. The district office in Bismarck sent a temporary supervisor who lasted 3 days before requesting reassignment for personal reasons. That left me as acting lead. I was 34, with 9 years on the job and 35 days in this district, and suddenly everyone was looking to me as if I had any idea how to handle something that could step off a roof and carry a human being into the dark like a grocery bag. The calls didn't stop. If anything, they got worse. Now every late-night noise, every creaking tree, every shadow at the edge of a campsite sparked a report. People had heard about the disappearances, about something big in the woods. Even if the news didn't print it, word got around. Some of the calls were real, some were just fear. I answered them all the same. Stay inside, lock the doors, don't go out, we'll check at first light. And every time I remembered the way Ellen's radio had crackled with my name in her voice when she'd been home in bed. Every time I remembered the look on her face when the thing picked her up. Follow protocol. I lasted 2 more weeks like that. 2 weeks of watching the tree line from the station windows. 2 weeks of waking up at 3 a.m., convinced I could hear heavy steps outside the bunk room. 2 weeks of carrying Ellen's keys in my pocket because I couldn't bring myself to empty her locker. Then I cracked. It happened on a Tuesday. The day had been quiet. No calls, no tourists, no paperwork disasters. I should have slept. I should have taken advantage of the lull to rest. Instead, I pulled out the binder. Ellen's binder. The one she'd started years ago and kept adding to. Missing persons, strange calls, sightings, logs, everything we had on the thing in the woods. I read it from cover to cover. Then I started over, this time making notes of my own. Times, dates, locations, descriptions. When I finished, I had something like a pattern. It wasn't perfect. There were gaps, anomalies, outliers, but a shape emerged. The incidents clustered along a rough corridor, an invisible artery of land running from northeast to southwest, following the deeper draws and riverbeds, skirting open grassland in favor of tree cover and eroded breaks. And right in the center of that path was a stretch of forest Ellen had circled in red once and never explained. She'd written 2 words in the margin next to it. Don't go. There was no trailhead there, no official campsite, no reason, on paper, for a ranger to patrol it. But the dots on my map, dates, names, last known locations, drifted closer and closer to that red circle the more recent they were. Whatever this thing was, that patch of woods was the eye of its storm. I sat at the desk, looking at the map, at Ellen's handwriting, at the dates that ended with no remains recovered, and I realized something that made my stomach flip. If I did nothing, if I followed protocol forever, the pattern would keep creeping. More people would vanish. More families would get the call. More rangers would end up as names in Ellen's binder. The rule didn't contain it. It limited the body count. That was all. And Ellen, who'd spent 28 years following that rule, was gone. Because of me. Because I'd called her. Because she'd come. I stared at the circle she'd drawn and made a decision. I was done waiting for it to come to us. I was going to go to it. I spent the afternoon pretending to work, answering emails, filing incident reports, sitting through a call with the district office where they used words like risk mitigation and communications strategy and never once said giant in the woods. At 5:30 p.m., I locked the station, signed myself off the schedule as off-duty, and wrote a note for the log. Night patrol, checking unauthorized activity along river corridor. It wasn't a total lie. I loaded one of the trucks with enough gear to keep the story plausible if anyone checked. Medkit, binoculars, camera, extra fuel, spare radio. Then I added what I actually planned to use: a headlamp, a second flashlight, a knife, a length of climbing rope, and Ellen's keys. I drove out while there was still light, taking the back roads, avoiding the highway. The sky was the color of old bruise, clouds low and heavy, threatening rain that never quite committed. The woods in the red circle weren't on any official map, just a thick patch of green on satellite imagery, a tangle of cottonwood and ash in a shallow basin where the land slumped and the soil stayed damp longer than anywhere else. I pulled off on a rutted two-track a mile from the basin and parked the truck under a line of twisted pines. From there, it would be on foot. I sat behind the wheel for a long minute, watching the light fade, listening to the engine tick as it cooled. I thought about calling someone, sheriff, state office, even the guy in Bismarck who'd used stakeholder engagement in a sentence with a straight face. Telling them where I was going would have been the smart move. It also would have guaranteed I'd be ordered to stop. I shut off the engine, grabbed my pack and stepped out into the cooling air. The walk to the basin took 15 minutes. The land dipped gradually, the sparse pines giving way to thicker growth. The air got cooler, damper. The smell changed from dust and sun-baked grass to rot and leaf mold. By the time I reached the edge of the basin, the sky had gone from grey to charcoal. The first stars tried to push through the cloud cover and failed. I switched on the headlamp, keeping the beam low. The last thing I wanted was to announce my arrival to anything watching from the trees. The basin itself was darker than it had any right to be. The trees grew closer together here, trunks thick and twisted, branches knitted overhead in a canopy that blocked what little light remained. I stood at the edge, looking down, and understood why Ellen had circled it. Even without knowing what was out here, my instinct screamed not to go in. Too late. I stepped over the invisible line and felt something in the air change. Not temperature, not sound, pressure, like I'd walked through a membrane. The sounds of the grassland, the distant wind, the occasional yip of a coyote fell away, replaced by the creak of branches and a faint, constant rustle that could have been leaves or something breathing slow and deep. I moved forward, counting steps, forcing myself to stay calm. 20 paces, 30, 40. The trees closed in around me. The headlamp cast a narrow tunnel of light, illuminating trunks that seemed to lean in as I passed. Every few yards, I saw them. Marks. Deep gouges in the bark, too high for any animal to make. 4, sometimes 5 parallel grooves like something with massive hands had dragged its fingers down the trees as it passed. Some were fresh, pale wood exposed, sap still weeping. Ellen had known about this place. She'd known and still worked here for nearly 3 decades. I reached a small clearing near the center of the basin without realizing I'd been heading for it. The trees stopped abruptly, opening into a roughly circular space about 20 yards across. The ground here was bare, stripped of undergrowth, earth packed and smooth, like something had condensed its weight in this one spot over and over. In the center of the clearing was a structure. At first, I thought it was a fallen tree. Then my eyes adjusted, and I saw the pattern. Branches. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. Twisted together, woven and knotted into a low domed shape about 6 feet high and 10 feet across. It looked like a massive bird's nest, if birds built out of whole limbs instead of twigs. The wood was weathered and dark, the joints tight. No nails, no rope, nothing but pressure and friction and age holding it together. My headlamp washed over it, catching on something pale between the sticks. Fabric. I moved closer. It was a shirt, a uniform shirt. Park Service green, faded, dirty, torn. My throat went dry. "Ellen," I called, hating how small my voice sounded in the clearing. No answer. I circled the structure, looking for an opening. There was none. Every gap between branches was narrow, interlocked. Whatever was inside, if anything, had been placed there before the last limbs were woven in. I dropped my pack, pulled out the climbing rope, looped it around one of the thicker branches at the top, and tested my weight against it. The structure creaked but held. I slipped the knife from its sheath and started cutting. The wood was old but tough. The first branch took longer than I liked. The second went faster. Once I'd opened a gap big enough to get both hands in, I started pulling, using my body weight to wrench sticks free, tossing them aside in a growing pile. The smell hit me first. Not rot, not decay, damp cloth, old sweat. The stale, closed-in odor of somewhere no air had moved in a long time. I widened the opening and aimed my headlamp inside. Something moved. I jerked back, knife up. A face appeared in the gap, pale, hollow-eyed, hair matted, skin drawn tight against bone. Marcus? My knees almost gave out. Ellen. She blinked against the light, raising a hand weakly to shield her eyes. You weren't supposed to come here, she whispered. I shoved another branch aside, widening the opening. What did it do to you? I asked. Her gaze flicked past me to the tree line. Later, she said. We need to go. Before... A branch snapped in the dark beyond the clearing. Loud, deliberate. Every hair on my body stood up. Ellen flinched, eyes going wide. It's here, she breathed. I worked faster, sawing through a thicker limb, ignoring the way my hands shook. What did you expect? She said. You came to its nest. Another crack, closer now. Not from something stepping on a twig, from something heavy shifting its weight against wood. Can you move? I asked. Not well, she said, but I can stand. I hacked through one last branch and wrenched it free. The opening was big enough now. I reached in, grabbed her under the arms, and pulled. She slid out of the structure like a corpse from a shroud, lighter than she should have been, clothes hanging off her frame, feet stumbling as they touched solid ground. I slung one of her arms over my shoulder and wrapped an arm around her waist. Come on, I said. We're leaving. She didn't argue. We took 3 steps toward the edge of the clearing. Something stepped into view between the trees. For a second, my brain refused to process what I was seeing. It was tall. That was the first thing. Not tall the way a basketball player is tall. Tall the way a cell tower looks when you stand directly under it. It had to duck to clear the lower branches. Its head was level with the first major forks in the trunks. Its body was wrong. Too thin for its height. Limbs too long. Joints not quite where they should be. Its arms hung almost to its knees, if those were knees, and its hands were hands but stretched, fingers like branches, each tipped with something that might have been a claw or might have been just more wood. Its skin wasn't skin. In the thin wash of my headlamp it looked like bark, grey and ridged, textured like the trees around it. In places, bits of moss clung to its surface, and long trailing strands of something like lichen hung from its arms. Its head was small compared to its body, perched on a too long neck that bent in slow, unnatural arcs as it regarded us. Its face, I don't know if face is even the right word. There was a shape there, an oval, smooth, pale, almost featureless. No mouth that I could see, no nose, just 2 depressions where eyes would be. They were dark, deep, lightless. But I knew it was looking at me. It didn't move, didn't rush, didn't lunge. It just stood at the edge of the clearing, head tilted, watching. Ellen's grip tightened on my shoulder. Don't run, she whispered. Whatever you do, don't run. What do we do? I whispered back. Don't look away, she said. Count to 60, out loud, slow. It sounded insane. It was all I had. 1, I said, voice shaking. 2, 3. The thing took a step into the clearing. It didn't make a sound when its foot hit the ground. No thump, no crunch. Just the whisper of tall grass bending out of its way. 4, 5, 6. It took another step. We were rooted in place. I don't know if it was fear or something it was doing to us, but my legs refused to move. 7, 8, 9. It was 10 yards away now. Up close, the bark-like texture of its body was clearer. Cracks ran along its limbs like dried riverbeds. In some of those cracks, something pale moved, wriggling slowly, like roots adjusting in soil. 10, 11, 12. Its head tilted the other way. I had the insane thought that it was listening to me count. 13, 14, 15. One more step. It was close enough now that I had to crane my neck to look up at its face. The dark hollows where its eyes should be seemed deeper, wider, empty. 16, 17, 18. Something shifted behind those hollows. Not light. Attention. "Don't blink," Ellen whispered. "If you blink, it moves." "Great," I said. Could have said that sooner. 19. 20, 21. The numbers came easier now. A rhythm, a rope I could hold on to. 22, 23, 24. The thing stopped. For the first time since it had appeared, it did something fast. Its head snapped to the side, looking away from us toward the trees beyond the clearing. I kept counting. 25, 26, 27. It took a step backward, not a retreat, a repositioning. 28, 29, 30. The trees behind it moved, not from wind. From something pushing them, a sound rolled through the basin, deep, low, a vibration more than a noise, like a freight train passing under your feet, like distant thunder beneath the ground. The thing in front of us stiffened. If it had hackles, they would have been up. 31, 32, 33. The sound came again, closer now. The branches overhead shivered. Leaves rained down. Something massive was moving through the woods, not fast, not clumsy, just big, bigger than the thing standing in front of us. 34, 35, 36. Ellen's nails dug into my arm. "It's here," she whispered. "What is?" "The other one." The first time I climbed in North Dakota, an old hand told me something that stuck. "There's the thing you're afraid of," he'd said, showing me a photo of a rattlesnake. "And then there's the thing the rattlesnake is afraid of." The thing in front of us, the giant, the walker, whatever you want to call it, turned fully now, body angling away from us, attention fixed on the trees. Its posture had changed, no longer that slow, curious tilt. This was wariness. On the far side of the clearing, the trees parted. Something stepped through. I have no words for it. Not because my memory fails, but because my memory refuses. I can tell you it was large, larger than the thing that had taken Ellen. It didn't stand like a person. It didn't even approximate it. It moved the way roots move when time is sped up in documentaries, slow, probing tendrils of mass that went where they wanted, and everything else got out of the way, or was broken. The ground under my feet shifted. Not an earthquake, not quite. More like something enormous had settled its weight deeper, displacing soil in waves. The two creatures regarded each other. One tall and thin, bark and lichen, and those awful empty eyes. The other a suggestion of bulk and depth, more implied than seen, every outline shifting as if it were made of shadow and trunk and stone. The air between them felt wrong. Heavy, wet, full. I kept counting. 37, 38, 39. The tall one took a step backward. Its head dipped just slightly. 40, 41, 42. A branch snapped under the larger thing's movement. A tree trunk split like kindling and fell, shaking the ground. I understood then. This wasn't king and subject. This was scavenger and apex. The tall one was a vulture that had gotten too bold. The bigger thing was whatever it had been stealing from. 43, 44, 45. The tall one turned its head toward us one last time. Not a look of anger, not of hunger. Something like calculation, like it was memorizing us. Then it stepped sideways, fast, disappearing into the trees with a fluid, horrible grace that would have been beautiful if it weren't so wrong. The larger thing watched it go. Then it turned its attention to us. Everything in me wanted to run. Ellen's arm tightened around my shoulders. "Keep counting," she whispered. "Do not stop." 46, 47. The mass shifted. A tendril of whatever it was extended, sliding across the clearing. Not quite touching the ground, not quite not. It stopped 6 feet from us. The air smelled like wet earth and lightning. 48, 49, 50. The tendril or limb or root or whatever twitched. For a second I thought it was going to wrap around us, drag us in, pull us down under the trees and soil and whatever passed for its body. Instead, it reached past us, to the nest. 51, 52, 53. The structure shook. One by one, the branches that made up the dome snapped free, as if they'd been cut with invisible blades. They flew into the air, crumbling mid-flight, disintegrating into dust that smelled like old storms. 54, 55, 56. In seconds, the nest was gone. Nothing but bare earth where it had been, no sticks, no fabric, no sign it had ever existed. Something moved at the edge of my vision. I forced myself not to look directly at it. My eyes stayed on that tendril of not quite solid in front of us as I counted. 57, 58, 59. The air pressure eased. The weight of attention lifted. 60. Silence. I blinked. Ellen sagged against me. We stood alone in the clearing. Whatever had been there, tall and thin or vast and ancient, was gone. The trees creaked. A bird called, tentative and late. I realized I'd been holding my breath. We left the basin as fast as Ellen's weakened legs would allow. I didn't look back. Every instinct in my body screamed that if I did, I'd see something standing at the edge of the trees, watching us go. We reached the truck, just as the first light of dawn bled into the eastern sky. Ellen collapsed into the passenger seat, eyes closed, breathing shallow. I drove us back to the station, then straight on to the hospital in Watford City. They kept her for a week. Dehydration, malnutrition, exposure. They had labels for those. For the way she woke up screaming some nights, hands clawing at her throat like she was drowning in air. They had less. She told them she'd gotten lost, that she'd fallen, hit her head, wandered for days. She stuck to that story with a stubbornness that would have been funny in any other context. She told me a little more, not much. Time doesn't work right in there, she said once, when we were alone and the machines were humming quietly to themselves. I don't know how long I was in that nest. Could have been days, could have been hours, could have been longer. What did it want? I asked. She stared at the ceiling. Not sure, she said. It didn't speak, not words. But I got the sense it wasn't done with me yet, like I was held, stored. For what? She shook her head. I don't think it knows either, she said. It just does it. The way spiders spin webs, the way birds build nests. It's what it is. And the other thing? I asked. The big one. Her eyes flicked to mine. That wasn't for us, she said. We were nothing to it. It came for the other one, the tall one, the walker. Why did it destroy the nest? Territory, she said. Or jealousy. Or maybe it just doesn't like competition. She closed her eyes. It didn't save us, Marcus, she said quietly. It just pushed us out of the way while it handled its own business. I thought about that, about the way it had cleared the nest but left us standing, about the way I'd felt when its attention brushed over me, small, incidental, like a leaf in the path of a river. What happens now? I asked. Now, Ellen said, we go back to work. That's it. That's it, she said. We file what we can, we warn who we can, we follow the rule, we don't go into that basin again. I laughed, a short, humorless sound. No argument here, I said. She was cleared for light duty 2 weeks later, came back to the station with a new thinness to her, and a quiet I hadn't seen before. She moved slower, talked less, smiled never. The district office offered to transfer her, desk job in Bismarck, training role in another state, early retirement with full benefits. She turned them all down. This is my park, she said. I'm not leaving it. They didn't push. For a while, things got better. The calls dropped off. Not completely. There were still the occasional late-night reports, but they were fewer, and none described anything as close, as persistent, as hungry as before. The prints around campsites were rarer, and when they appeared, they were smaller, fainter. Like whatever made them wasn't fully committing its weight. People stopped disappearing. For 6 months. Then a hunter went missing 20 miles south outside our jurisdiction. His partner reported seeing something tall in the tree line just before they split up. The prints at the site didn't make sense to the sheriff's office. They made sense to us. Ellen and I didn't say anything. What were we going to do? Drive into another district and tell them their woods were haunted? We followed the rule. We logged what we heard. We answered the calls the same way. We told people to stay inside, to wait until morning, to let the darkness pass. Some listened, some didn't. Most survived. A few didn't. I lasted another year. The district office offered me a promotion in a different park, somewhere with more people and less empty space. I took it. On my last day, Ellen walked me out to my truck. "You did good," she said. "Better than most." "I broke the rule," I said. "So did I," she said. "Sometimes you have to. Sometimes you get away with it. Sometimes you don't." Yeah. We stood there in the gravel, neither of us quite ready to say goodbye. "You could still leave, you know," I said. "Take that desk job. Move somewhere with streetlights." She smiled just a little. "And trust someone else to watch this place," she said. "Not a chance." She handed me something, a folded piece of paper. "Don't open it until you're at least 2 states away," she said. I nodded, slid it into my pocket, and got in the truck. I didn't look back as I drove away. I made it to Montana before I pulled into a rest stop and unfolded the paper. It was a photocopy of a page from her binder. Handwritten entry. Date, 1999. First cluster I ever saw. Thought it was random until I mapped it. Realized everything was drifting toward that basin. Talked to old-timers, some tribal elders, a couple of ranchers who've been here longer than the service. They all said the same thing in different words. Below, in her own smaller handwriting, "There's the thing in the woods that takes people." Under that, another line, "And there's the thing the woods belong to." At the bottom of the page, in ink that was brighter, newer, probably added the day she copied it, she'd written one more sentence. "If you leave, don't live near trees. I work in the desert now. Different park, different problems, different stories passed around at the end of shifts. Out here, the dangers are obvious. Heat, dehydration, flash floods, snakes under rocks. There are trees sometimes, imported, irrigated. They look wrong to me now, out of place against the rock and sand. I don't live near them. My apartment is in a town where the tallest things are streetlights and cell towers. Most nights I sleep through, some nights I don't. On those nights I wake up around 3 a.m. with the inexplicable sense that something is standing outside. I lie there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening. Sometimes I hear a truck on the highway, a dog bark, the hum of a distant air conditioner. Once, when the wind was just right, I heard something else. A long, slow creak, like an old tree trying to bend where there was no tree to bend. I didn't get up, didn't look out the window, just lay there, counting under my breath. 1, 2, 3. I made it to 60. The feeling passed. The next morning, I went to work like nothing had happened. I still wear the uniform. I still answer radios. I still tell people to follow the rules. I don't talk about North Dakota. If you pressed me, if you sat me down in a bar somewhere and bought me enough drinks, I might tell you this. There are places in this country where the land is older than our maps, older than our names, older than whatever sense we have that we're in charge. In those places, things grow that aren't plants, things move that aren't animals, things watch that don't need eyes. Most of the time, they ignore us. Every now and then, they don't. If you're ever camping in the northern grasslands and you hear something walking through the trees after midnight, something with steps too slow and spacing too wide, do yourself a favor. Don't go outside. Don't look out the window. Don't call anyone. Just lie there in the dark, count to 60, and hope you're not interesting enough to notice. Because if it decides you are, there might be something bigger behind it that doesn't like competition. And if that one looks at you, rules won't save you. Only luck will.